Welcome to the Gaming Trend Podcast, the official podcast of GamingTrend.com. My name is Anthony Shelton, and I am joined by David Burdette.
Hello there.
And Noah Rigsby.
Hello.
On this podcast, we talk about the latest games we could get our hands on. We talk about games in our backlog we should have played a long time ago, and games you just absolutely need to play. We also squeeze in some news. This week, David got his hands on and reviewed the new Sherlock Holmes. Noah has been grinding out the latest MLB The Show, and I have finally set Destiny 2 Lightfall down for good and picked up Fire Emblem Engage instead at last. It's been on my playlist for a while. So let's just get this thing started. David, you've been playing Sherlock Holmes. How is it?
Well, Sherlock Holmes, as we were talking about a little bit earlier, I believe that this is what remakes aspire to be. I know that's a really hot take on it, especially we are in a day and age that we are getting some, stellar remakes this year. We've already gotten Dead Space remake. We've already gotten Resident Evil 4 remake. And I do think that those are in this category. So let me go ahead and just set the record straight. I don't think it's just Sherlock Holmes. There's a lot of them that are in here. But what I'm getting at with what makes Sherlock Holmes a bit unique is The Awakened is a remake, but it's also where Sherlock Holmes is going next. So to kind of make a little more sense of this, in chapter 1, they kind of restarted Sherlock Holmes, if that makes sense. The Frogwares team has reset the series with chapter 1. Chapter 1 went into more of an open world story of Sherlock kind of solving his first cases and being this younger man that was doing all these different things and having to go through a whole lot of tough things. Because the first game, actually, chapter 1 at least, he's trying to figure out what happened with his mother, and you kind of see a bit of Sherlock's the issues with his mind as he goes through it, and that is already kind of on the table. But what's really interesting is the team at Frogwares, instead of just moving into whatever chapter 2 is, which they are dealing with the fact that they're in the middle of, they are in the Ukraine, so they're dealing with an actual war. So instead of having to completely go fresh and new and rebuild everything from scratch, or just do some generic sequel using what they built in chapter 1 and do something quickly, they went ahead and took a game from their past. The Awakened came out in about 2006. And in 2006, Sherlock Holmes games looked very different than they do now. A lot of games looked a lot different than they do now. What's cool about this is they took the base story of the game and they said, okay, that's what we're going with. So what exists here, a lot of it is going to be familiar. Like this, I actually did go back and watch some footage of the original game, especially with like when I was talking about the comparisons of these particular scenes. And there's a lot that happens exactly the same because, of course, they're using the same story. Even down to there's a moment where in this scene that we're watching, there's a girl that's in a wheelchair and she starts yelling. That actually happens in the Awakened game back in 2006. So the coolest thing that they've done is they've taken this game and they've put chapter 1 Sherlock Holmes into it. So they've taken the story and sort of retrofitted it in to be a I don't want to say 1.5, but it's kind of a 1.5 in the sense of this is where we're going in the next stories of Sherlock Holmes. So they're taking the Sherlock that is, in my mind, Alex Jordan. He's the one who's the voice of Sherlock, who's done the performance. He is one of the best Sherlock Holmes performances that I've seen, and that is throughout the different Sherlock Holmes. I'm not saying he is the best, but he's definitely in the top tier of them. So it's really cool that we're able to get his performance his style of Sherlock Holmes in this, especially when the style of Sherlock Holmes that was in the 2006 game is very different. It's more the stuffy one from the books is the easiest way to put that original Sherlock Holmes, whereas this one is there's a lot more personality to Sherlock, which part of that comes with the territory of they're able to inject a lot more personality into a video game now compared to 2006, especially with the way that they're able to develop the characters.
So there's some dialogue going on. Can we take a moment to hear what he sounds like?
Yeah, go right ahead. Which Dr. Watson's talking right now, and it'll switch it over in a second. Sherlock is actually in a disguise, so he may sound a little different. Oh, do I have to unmute it? Okay.
Yeah, I think you do. Yeah.
Yes, if you'd be so kind as to escort Dr. Watson to the guest room.
It should switch over here in a second.
From Northwood Agency. How unexpected.
Yeah, to be clear, this is not Sherlock Holmes talking.
I would be happy to answer your question.
We'll hear David's impersonation here in a few seconds.
Look, Professor, unless you got any clues as to the whereabouts of...
Yeah, this scene right here is what actually happens in the 2006 original.
No one gets neglected in my care.
I should
rewind it a little bit.
Yeah, I should probably actually fast forward because he's talking in his disguise voice.
Oh, okay.
So let me see if I can get it forward to where Sherlock's going to be talking a little bit more. There we go. As I click on things, he will start talking about them.
Raw materials used to formulate medicine.
It's very buttery. Smooth.
Yes. Except love Jordan's performances. Like he's very good at what he does.
The final product, ready to cure madness or to push one deeper into its grasp. With this equipment, they can create any type of medication.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like what you would expect Sherlock Holmes to sound like. I guess it's kind of that, that picture perfect British type of expectation,
Well, and the cool thing is when you get into some conversations as well as the actual dialogue in cutscenes and whatnot, it comes across even more so. And occasionally, what's interesting is at the beginning of this game. So the whole premise of this game is you are actually delving into what ends up being a cult. Like it actually is the mythos, it's believers behind the Cthulhu mythos. So there's a lot going on, and because of Sherlock already having so many issues from before, in chapter 1, where you could kind of tell his mind was still not. He was still having issues from his past, from his childhood. Sherlock starts the game as a lot more of this confident, almost, we all know Sherlock is arrogant. he just, that's how he comes. He knows everything. So he comes across arrogantly. He starts off as that. As you continue through this game, the performance is just continues to get better because a lot of kind of hallucinations and whatnot happen with Sherlock, and who knows what's real, what isn't. But you can see they actually, even using what they do with his facial features and whatnot, you can see the bags under his eye. You can see the sleeplessness in his face. And Alex Jordan's performance begins to accompany that beautifully, and how his dialogue comes across, how all of this goes. And that's one of the pinnacles of this game, is they did a really great job of showing just Sherlock's entire psyche is fracturing. and that's on full display. And it's, you know how it goes. It's not enough just to be like, okay, this is what's happening. You have to show how it's happening. It's the algebra problem of a video game. It's not enough just to solve something. You've got to show how you got there. And they do a wonderful job of this whole entire tale showing how Sherlock gets to this place. Now, I will say this, and I'm trying to make sure that I'm not spoiling anything, but the way the game ends does have a lot of hopelessness in it. And that's the only thing that I'm not very fond of, because I love Sherlock as a character, and I don't want to feel like he's just a broken man at the end of this. And I hope that they find a way to add some redemption into his arc and whatever chapter 2 is, because this still, while this is still another game, it does feel like more of a it doesn't feel like a full next chapter, given it is a remake. Like, this is just the next page of the story, in between the chapters, filling in what's to come next. So I really hope that they go further, but it's very cool to see how they've put together this, an older game, and been able to make it work into this, as well as they've added Dr. Watson into this one. This is his first time working with him. I really like the performance from Dr. Watson. I didn't actually look up to see who actually did the voice on this one, but especially as the story continues to wear on, you really start to appreciate Watson, and the fact of he's this only friend that Sherlock has, pretty much, and he's the one that keeps Sherlock in reality, keeps him connected. Because Sherlock, once again, as I said, as you continue to the end of this game, Sherlock's questioning like his existence, it feels like, as things continue to happen. And if not for what Dr. Watson does, he would just completely disintegrate. You even get a couple of chances to play as Dr. Watson, and some of the, while it's roughly the same thing, just without Sherlock's investigation button, as you get to the end, there's some ways that they do the puzzle. They do some puzzles and whatnot, and man, that is some of the best parts of the gameplay. And I really hope that they bring that over to Chapter 2, because using both characters in different moments during that second chapter ends up working really well, and is a strength to how they end the game. As you'll see in some of the gameplay that we're watching, the gameplay's nothing that is too over the top, and if you've played Chapter 1, you know what's here. It's pretty much you go into a room and you try to click on anything that shows up to be clicked on. You're just trying to see what is what. Some things are just going to be you click on it and Sherlock makes a remark on it. Other things are going to draw you into an investigation scene where you're going to have to look in an area for specific things. And all of those things are meant to bring you to solving the larger puzzle as a whole, which is, it actually says it on the screen here, that it's the Mind Palace. There's actually a place where the questions pop up of things you need to solve, and then you have to take these pieces you've picked up through the levels and then choose which one fits answering your question. So I don't believe it's this one specifically, but you come up on a point where there is actually this is it. You have to solve how to get past a guard who's keeping you from getting to the next block, and then you go into your Mind Palace and you're looking through the things you've picked up. And I picked up some metal tubes and some syringes and stuff, and I'm able to click on all those things and essentially make a blowgun, which that doesn't happen very often, as you actually creating something to use in the world. But here, it's one of the ways that you solve this. So it's a neat idea that works really well in these games, of having to, once again, you're the detective. You're having to deduce how to move forward, and I like how they do that.
I find it hysterical. They call that a palace. That looks nothing like a palace. It looks like a membrane with nerves sticking out of it, and then they stretch out to these ideas.
Yep.
There's nothing palace-like about that.
What I do find funny is it took me a while to figure out some of this stuff at this point. That's why I keep clicking around on different things. Because I didn't understand exactly how everything was designed. That's something actually that I mentioned in the review, and I actually mentioned it in my first review, is that these games do not handhold at all. These are, you're the detective, you figure it out. So there's not a lot of, I'm not going to say there's no tutorials, but there's not a lot of them. And if you don't take the time to look at, like, in the menu, there's actually something that says how to play. If you don't pay attention to that, you're not going to know what some of these icons mean, because they're not going to walk you through what they mean.
Sure.
Because with each of these different things, as you pick up new pieces of evidence or clues or whatnot, it actually, once again, it works its way through in your casebook. So you got to go into your casebook, look at these different pieces, and then, for instance, like with one of the pieces of evidence with the casebook, when I was looking at it, I suddenly realized, oh, I need to pin this as the main thing that I'm working on. And from there, with looking at it as the main thing I was working on, I noticed there was another icon on it beyond telling me that it was supposed to be pinned, that was essentially saying that I needed to talk to people in the NPCs in my environment to get information. And essentially, I had to go to a certain area, and in that area, I had to talk to people, and that was it. I was able to find, like, this guy's shop specifically, that was able to get information on where his shop was, and then go there. Other times, it'll show up like an eye, and that's that you need to be looking in your environment for clues using the investigation button to be able to find stuff. So the game is intuitive. It's that you have to pay attention and know what you're looking for. That includes, even there was one scene that I was at, a crime scene, and turns out I had to completely leave the crime scene and almost start trying to go out of the level in order to trigger the next thing. Not this specifically, but one of the levels that I was doing. And man, it's like, sheesh. That there was nothing telling me that was what I was supposed to do in the slightest. I just had to come to figure that out and kind of do it on accident. And there are some times that you may kind of solve something on accident, but it really is up to you to be like, okay, have I clicked everything here? All right, maybe I need to go somewhere else. The Frogwares is they don't handhold, and that some might not appreciate that, some may not like that, but that's, it's an investigation game. You're supposed to be trying to, if they give you everything up front, I'd like a hint, some form of hint system, but if they give you everything up front, you're not going to get as much enjoyment out of the game. At that point, it almost becomes a flip book.
I agree. And not every game can do that.
Yeah,
When you do
exactly. Not every game can get away with it. One thing that is really good with this one, they call this a semi-open world, not an open world like Cordona was in Chapter 1. And most people would think, oh man, we got downgraded, but it is actually a pretty meaty game overall. I think I put about 8-10 hours into it, which to me, I like games like that I can just put that much time into and I'm done. Not every game has to be 200 hours long. This one also feels, there's very few things that feel like padding. Because there are a couple of side missions that you can do in the semi-open levels. The only one that was padding, so to speak, is sure they give you the option to go and find wanted posters around the town, and there are 10 of them that Sherlock wants for his collection. That's really it, and I'll be honest, I went and did it just because it actually was fun looking for the wanted posters. Like, if you do it occasionally, and I think I bring this up actually in the review, is if you put the right dosage of it in, it's okay. It's when every other thing, it's when I'm having to look for 200 feathers in Assassin's Creed, that's when I get frustrated. Like, those are the issues. I gotta find 10 posters. Okay, cool. Like, this is nothing compared to some of these other games with collectibles. And it's one instance of it. And it's in the town where one of the best side missions is, where it's this story called Cole's Tragedy, and it's about this man living in a shack in New Orleans, and there's going to be some story spoilers here for anybody who wants to skip over. for this mission in particular, but he says that there is a spirit essentially after him, and turns out he made some concoction tea kind of thing that somebody had told him how to make, and they gave him the wrong ingredient, so he was hallucinating. Turns out it's because he bought it from his sister-in-law, who he had been involved in an incident with her husband, which was his brother, and his brother had gotten shot and killed. And so she intentionally had did that to him, not trying to kill him, per instance, not trying to do these things, but she felt like he deserved whatever he got out of it. And you review what actually happened in the actual incident, and you don't solve a crime in it or anything like that, but you go back and you talk to him and just say, look, there was nothing you could have done. And it's this beautiful tale in the end of just remorse and how this guy feels like he's responsible for his brother dying, and how and Sherlock is just saying, look, she'll never have a chance to forgive you if you're dead, if you kill yourself. Because he almost wanted to die in that instance with what was going on. And it's like I said, it's just such a heart-wrenching tale, and they do such a good job of personifying a lot of these characters, like a lot of these little side things you are just really well written. Like you just in the whole main story is well written, but when you get off the beaten path and get to talk, which they did the same thing in chapter 1, but when you get to solve these side cases, like it's nice when I get a game that it's like, oh, pretty much everything I'm doing in this game is enjoyable. I'm not hitting these moments. Like for reference, and there's not like a ton of trophies, but I got to the end of the game and I think there are 28 trophies. I have 25 of them. Like, to be able to get all of these trophies is pretty cool, because a lot of them are just choose certain things as you're going through and make certain choices, and some of them revolve around the side. So it's like, okay, you made this stuff engaging so that I'm actually enjoying doing it, to the point that I have almost every trophy. And I do plan on going back and getting the last, technically it's the last 2 things I have to do because it'll trigger the platinum. But it's like, oh, that's awesome. Like, all this stuff was so fun that I just kept doing all of it naturally. And not enough games naturally get you to do achievements. It's always, I have to track this, I have to do this, I have to do that. This was, oh, I'm just enjoying myself, and I've managed to do all of this anyway. So it's not necessarily perfect, but it's enjoyable. And I think enjoyability is actually a lot higher on the list than perfection most of the time when it comes to video games, because there's video games that can be perfect, but if I don't like playing them,
well, then they wouldn't be perfect, would they?
Yep.
All right.
But it's a very good, it's a great double A game. Like, this is a great indie studio. If you haven't gotten a chance to check it out, we did interview their sound designer and got to talk with him a little while back. It's just it's a fun game, and I hope a lot of people will pick it up.
Very nice. All right. You reviewed it, so what score did you give it?
Score, I gave it an 85 out of 100. I
good.
thought it's a riveting tale. The gameplay doesn't change a whole lot compared to previous chapter 1, but it didn't need to change much. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And the final chapter is just very well. There's the final 2 chapters are just great. I really enjoyed my time with it.
Very nice. All right, so that's Sherlock Holmes
The Awakened.
Noah, you have been playing MLB The Show. I hear it's a lot, so hit us with your thoughts on that.
It is a lot. This is the part of the show where if you need to go to the bathroom or grab snacks and you're not a sports fan, this is the time to go. This is
A lot of people
your
enjoy
break.
the show.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, so I do apologize if I sound different. I'm dealing with some teeth pains and issues, so um, I'll try not to ramble as I normally um, do. So MLB, it's a yearly sports release. There's lots of them. It is the top dog of baseball, has been for many years. It is a simulation of the sport. It aims to make it as realistic as possible. The gameplay, you can't really change much about baseball. It is still baseball. It still plays at its core the exact same over many years. Um, the show's biggest obstacle in each year is trying to get new people into the franchise at a premium price tag. So, because everybody who is like me, who is a baseball fanatic, who enjoys the show, you don't have to sell them on the game. In my years in the retail industry, you didn't have to, if somebody is a fan of MLB The Show, they will be back every year to pre-order and pick up the game. You have to try and get people who have not played the show who are interested in a baseball game into the franchise. Normally, with most titles, I would always say, hey, pick up one of the previous year's entries. It's a lot cheaper because they release them every year, and gameplay wise, you're not going to notice enough to warrant paying $60 for the new guy out. This year, for the first time, I feel like in a long time, I actually think it's worth picking up the fresh, hot off the press entry.
Hmm.
For a couple reasons. The biggest one I'll get to shortly, but uh, I don't. The great thing about reviewing MLB is I don't have to explain, how the game works because everyone knows how baseball works. You swing, you see the ball, you hit the ball. It's the same. Um, so you get to talk about what additions were made, um, improvements, and then things that that they missed out on. Because visually impressive as always, it's slowly becoming more. You know, it's going to be slowly harder to detect what is the game and what is actually real life baseball because the animations and the facial structures are so realistic. Um, they've added, I believe it was over 5,000 new animations into the game, not only on the offensive side but defensive. So it's just a very pretty to look at. um, so that's expected. You expect them to get better every year. It's usually a shock if they downgrade. Um, Gameplay wise, very fluid, very consistent. You One of the most fun ways to swing, when you're hitting and stuff, is using the analogs um, to hit, and then when you're pitching, you can use the analogs to kind of trace the path that you want the ball to take. I feel like this year was definitely the most consistent than previous years, where what I felt like, would trace the exact same pitch, it would not land where I spotted it. So I appreciate the consistency. I like consistency in games. So now that, you get the basics out of the way. Yes, it looks good, looks pretty, plays good, plays really responsive. The newest edition is the reason I would say to buy this game at full price, pick it up, and learn something. They added a new game mode called Storylines Negro Leagues, and it is brilliant. It is the shining achievement of this game. And from everyone that I have talked to, read about, everyone is praising this mode and rightfully so. It is. Let me see. I mean, I have it wrote down who they actually partnered with. Here we go. Yep, let me scroll over because I have my notes here. So San Diego Studios is the guys who made the game. They partnered with the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, and their president, Bob Kendrick, is the president. I was looking for the name. So he does this. It's a mixture of gameplay, like scripted gameplay scenarios. He mixes that with, it's almost like if you've ever walked through like a history museum or an art exhibit, and then like you see this screen in a video plays, and it's like gives you an intro to like the scenario or whatnot. It's basically him doing that, and it's him talking about, there's, I think it's like 8 in total, players from the Negro Leagues era, who some of them are names that people recognize, like Satchel Paige and Jackie Robinson. But a lot of them are forgotten in the history books because that was not a very segregated time. And so there's a lot of overcoming obstacles and stuff like that. And it gives you insight into not only what these players went through, but also what they did for the sport. And it's amazing. And he sits down and he's talking to you like you're just having a chat over lunch. It's very personable. I grew up hearing stories of baseball legends and icons, and I'm just eating it up. Like stories around the campfire, I'm on every word. I'm, absorbed into what he's saying. And it's just inspiring to hear what, not only what they did for the sport, but what they did for just each other and the franchises, and to help each other out. Because there's so many of these where it's like, oh, Rube Foster, yeah, you don't know him. Well, these like A, B, C, and D, like white guys who were infamous in the game of baseball. It's like, yeah, he taught them how to pitch, so, and things like that. It's so real. It's such a good insight, and it's perfectly crafted. Man, is it well done. So the flow of it, now that I can get off my little rant about it, the flow of it is he'll give like an intro, and then you'll go into a simulated script, like the situation or a story that he just told. So he would tell these like stories that you're like, there's no way that's true. He's like, no, it was true. And then you'll simulate, and it's usually, a lot of it's pitching. So it's like, hey, you have to pitch this 1 inning, strike out 2 batters, don't give up a walk. And it's reminiscent of what he did in this specific moment of a game. My favorite one to play was, it was with Satchel Paige, and he was playing against a batter who trash talked him a little bit. Said, like, we're gonna get, we're gonna score some runs, we're gonna get a hit off you. We had a guy just got a hit off you. And I can't tell it nearly as well as Bob did, but basically Satchel's told not only the infield, but the outfield as well to come on in. And, they took a couple steps in. He's like, no, come all the way in. And so he had his entire infield and outfield take a knee behind the pitcher's mound, and he threw, it was like 3 innings without giving up a hit or a run. And so
that was his equivalent of 6'2", 6'2", 6'2".
That was his equivalent of, you will not get another hit. So
I think it was a little better than that.
Oh yeah.
It's just so incredible. And then, you go through and it's like, you have to pitch 3 innings, and the stuff, and it gives you their actual, I guess, arsenal of pitches, and it's simulated, like they dress, you're literally pitching as Satchel Paige, which is just a dream. And the stuff that you wield is nasty. Like, I know it's a game, but the stuff, and it even is named for what the pitchers themselves name their pitches. So it is the reason to pick it up. You'll instantly become a fan of it. It's such a well done addition. And the good news is that was season 1. They've talked in each, of the coming entries of MLB, they're going to do new seasons. So hopefully in MLB 2024, with whoever's on the cover of it, we'll get season 2 with more, untold stories and additions to the game. So yeah, that is, man, it's and it's hard to talk about it. You definitely have to see it and experience it, because once you do, you'll become a big fan. So that is the big.
The show is on Game Pass, isn't it?
It is. Yep. That's
Yeah,
I
will
talked
check
about
it.
it briefly in my review that since going to Game Pass is helped the franchise so much in terms of growth, because you're no longer on one specific platform. You have another
Oh, yeah.
fully, it's seeing a lot of success and growth. And yeah, if you want to drop 60 to support them, go right ahead. I would not stop you. But yeah, it's on Game Pass. Try it out. It's almost, you don't have to like, oh, I need to play, a couple exhibition games to unlock it. Like, oh no, you can just start it off, and you can put it on whatever difficulty. So it's a great, I guess, trek through history. So
I'm gonna check that out.
yeah, I can't talk about it enough. All the other modes, for the most part, are improved upon just slightly. Like, everything's pretty good. There's just nothing overhauled about it, which they've got such a good formula. They're really just tweaking it at this point. They've added captain cards into Diamond Dynasty, which Diamond Dynasty, I guess I should explain that, because if you're not a MLB The Show guy, you have no clue. But it's basically, you mix baseball card collecting with gameplay. So you collect these cards, and you'll have players that you can use on your team to either play against people online or the computer. They've added captain cards, which are notable players throughout the league that if you get them to a certain tier, your overall team gets stat boosts as like a flat team stat boost. That was nice. The other modes stayed the same. They're modes that have been around forever. Franchise, you control your team. Road to the Show this is where I get to go into the cons, the missteps. I talked about the high. I'll just briefly talk about the low. So Road to the Show is nothing new. That is a definite misstep in my part, because I like taking my player from the farm clubs, increasing my stats, moving to the big leagues. It's pretty much copy paste from previous years. No innovations, no real reason to experience. It's, again, my only other big negative about MLB is that Road to the Show, along with Stubs, Stubs is the microtransaction element of MLB. It's the way that you buy packs for Diamond Dynasty, because you can buy packs that give you, it's like opening regular, Magic the Gathering card packs. You can get some good players. You're looking for pulls. So the in-game currency and any save data, none of it was able to be imported over from the previous year. I don't know if that was due to a technical limitation or, what the reason is, but if you put all your time into starting a character, moving him up through the minor leagues, playing multiple seasons to get drafted, and then playing multiple seasons to level him up in the big leagues, not being able to transfer him over into the next year doesn't feel good at all, in my opinion. No one likes starting over when you've put that much time. Same with Stubs and save data. So, if you had like $100 worth of Stubs left over in MLB 22, it's not going to work in 23. So, and especially if you play Diamond Dynasty, which is the most popular game mode, that's not a good a good feeling. But yeah, overall, if you're a baseball fan, I don't have to sell this game to you. You've already got it. You're already playing it. It's if you're not a baseball fan and you're wanting to try it out and see, why we love this franchise so much, this is the year to just, drop in, say hello, grab a hot dog, all the fun stuff. So yeah, overall, a very, very good baseball game.
Nice. That's MLB The Show 24, right?
23.
Okay, I wasn't sure if
23.
they go the year ahead route.
Yeah.
MLB is
But
one
yeah.
of the few that their
Yeah.
season actually stays in the year that it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And it
Very
throws
true.
everyone off,
yeah.
The-
Well, to be fair, they
Yeah.
pretty much release the show when baseball season starts.
Yep, spring training.
So it makes sense. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna check that out. The first time I played the show was 21. Yep, 21. At home with my daughter. I was like, this is a good time to try this game out. It's on Game Pass. Download this thing. It's not on PlayStation anymore. So I get to try it. I liked it. I liked it a lot. I wanted to play more of it. I heard the show 22 wasn't great. So I didn't
Yeah.
try that one.
Yeah,
But-
it was kind of a copy paste. And then, this year was when they really stepped it up and moved a lot of the modes forward to make it worth picking it up,
Yeah.
like instead of
I
it
get
being
that.
like, well, this should have been a patch, with
Right.
roster updates and graphics. The storylines mode is just, it alone is worth the price of admission. I can't say enough positive things about it. So yeah, my review should be getting posted tomorrow, as of the time of this recording, Friday, April 7th. So that's when it should be going up.
All right. I was gonna ask you for the score, but it ain't up yet. So it's all
I
right.
mean, I've scored it an 85. Spoilers. So
So
Go
it's
read it
finished.
now
It's just not going up.
after you
It
read the
will
Sherlock
be-
review, go read MLB.
Yeah.
if you
Basically.
need some good going to sleep, if you can't quite fall asleep and you want some bedtime reading,
Hey.
check out some baseball reviews.
Keep in mind, baseball's on the upswing right now because they have made the pitch counts faster. and
I'm
all
gonna
that.
throw
So,
up on podcast right now. Do not get me started on the pitch
You
clock.
you don't like that?
I hate it. I hate it so
Okay.
much.
Okay.
My jimmies will get rustled.
There already are. I can tell.
They are.
Okay. Well,
If you want a fast sport, go watch NASCAR or something where they drive fast. Like
That's
people
not
got
very
things
fast.
to do, man. This is 160.
NASCAR is not fast.
Man.
NBA, if you want fast, NBA. NASCAR
NBA
is
or hockey. Yeah.
NASCAR is so slow because it's 500
baseball-
laps, dude.
baseball is not a fast sport. It's a mental game. If you think otherwise, lose my number. I'll bring that segment back for a minute. If you,
We could
Jeez.
debate that, and I think you would be pleasantly surprised by my arguments. Because baseball doesn't need to be that long. It does not. So
it
We'll
sped
leave
the
it-
game
we'll leave
up
it there.
like 30 minutes.
that matters, man. Single guy with nothing
You
to
guys
do.
worried about
People
the
got
pitch clock.
lives. You
You
can't
guys
have-
worried about the pitch clock, left in the 7th inning anyway, so you already left 30 minutes before the game even ended. Let us enjoy our slow, boring game.
we would have stayed for the whole thing if it would have ended 30 minutes earlier.
We all know who's going to win anyways. It's probably going to be Houston again, so
Quite possibly. All right. That's the show though. Yeah, I'm gonna check that out. All right. So I don't know which one I should talk about first. I guess I'll talk about Fire Emblem first. It's not bigger than Destiny 2, but I haven't played it. I've been eager to play it. It's been sitting in my Switch for like 2.5 months because I've been trying to finish all these long games like One Piece Odyssey and Destiny 2 and Overwatch, all the seasons. Blizzard
Better than
keeps
me
giving
booting up my
Blizzard.
Switch.
Well, yeah.
Oh, I was making space because I know stuff is coming up, and I was looking, and every game says last played over a year ago.
Yeah, seriously. So I like the Switch. Dude, man, I wasn't even ready for that yet.
Yes, you are. You ready? It's at your pitch count.
Yeah,
I
that's your
need.
pitch clock. Yeah, step into the box. Yeah, how you like it?
Oh,
Yeah.
if you were actually putting me on a pitch clock and putting me in broadcast mode, I would absolutely
Oh,
step
no.
up to the plate. Okay, I'd knock it out the park if you're gonna put me under pressure. Let's okay.
There's your 20 seconds to get
This-
ready. Here you
you-
go.
This is a podcast.
You always knock it out of the park, Anthony.
Not always, but anyway. All right. So my overarching thoughts about the little bit of Fire Emblem that I've played, because I've gotten to chapter 7 right now. And at this point, with everything that I'm seeing, and I can tell I've played enough Fire Emblem. It's been a while. I didn't play Fates. Last one I played was Awakening. All right. So I could tell I'm still in that early stage where it's like they're still kind of teaching you all the elements and all that stuff. No, I think you played it, right?
So I
I thought
wasn't
you
paying
talked about it
attention.
earlier on the podcast.
I started to, and in the first like tutorial battle, I was like, we'll just full send it, and I lost the tutorial battle because I wasn't paying attention. And I felt so ashamed I haven't picked it up since. I'm like,
That is
I,
a reason to feel ashamed.
I
I
need
have
to-
never heard anybody fail the tutorial.
I was
Like,
watching a stream at a friend's house like while playing, and so I was just not paying. I was like, oh, I'll outlive this, and it tells you like if you're gonna outlive it, and I just did not. I was like, yeah, it's the tutorial, you can't fail the tutorial, and I did. So and I was like, bro, I need to, this has got to cook for a little bit. This game doesn't deserve me right now.
all right, that's fair. I was hoping to have more of your thoughts, but okay. Well, at this point, with as much Fire Emblem as I have played, and playing this one now, which to everybody who plays even more regularly than I do, they say this is more like traditional Fire Emblem. I'm not sure what else Intelligent Systems can do with Fire Emblem after this game, because there is so much in it that I'm like, what else can you do? There are so many different systems, so many different ways to buff, so many different ways to change things. And I'm like, okay, all of it feels good. It doesn't feel overwhelming. It doesn't feel bloated, but it is a lot. And because it's so much, it feels complete. Like this is Fire Emblem from now on. And we're talking about, this one is specifically about emblems and rings, and these emblems and rings allow you to play as old Fire Emblem heroes from past games. Particularly the ones before Fire Emblem started going heavy on conversation and personalities and relationships. That's the word I'm looking for. So it was before that. And so each ring gives your heroes different abilities that they couldn't have before. So I have like a healer who is traditionally, just a character who walks with 2 feet and not a lot of movement space. But I gave her a ring with a paladin, a cavalry, who rides on horseback. And not only does that give her more movement, it allows her to move multiple times. Like, it's kind of nuts, and I love it because healers can be some of the most vulnerable units. And with this ring attached, I can now go in, heal a character, and then continue to move and get her out of danger. And if I activate the engage, which is basically taking the original character and combining them with the ring, and like their powers now are blossomed out. I can attack even with this character. So different things like that. and the considerations you have, like once you engage, you only have 3 turns to be able to do it. So when you engage, what moves do you use? Who do you attack? Who do you give the ring to? You have things like on-field actions, like chain attacks, where if you're standing next to a character, the character next to you will launch an attack first that does a little bit of damage, and then you'll do your actual attack. You have weapon upgrades. So they're bond rings, which add extra stats to your character as you build them. There's so many different things now. It's just like, okay, it's hard to keep up with all of them because the turn-based nature of it, none of these things are happening at the same time. So you have to remember after each fight, oh, I can do this certain thing. And I got to remember, oh yeah, let me go try to upgrade my bond rings, or let me see if I can upgrade my weapon, or let me determine, is the ring that I have this character on the right person? Should I change that? So there's so many different things. And yet, with all of it, it still feels like Fire Emblem that I've been playing before Fates, before even Awakening. And so it feels like I'm riding a bike, and yet it feels like I'm riding a bike with like all these extra gadgets on them that I get to use. It doesn't seem like I don't have to use them, but again, I'm not as far in the game as I could be. So maybe there comes to a position where I do have to use them. But right now it doesn't feel like I have to. So if that is true throughout the whole game, I like that a lot, because, you know, you can kind of play it the way you want, or you can really get into the nitty gritty and flesh out all the characters in the game. Not to mention, there's still all the relational aspects to it, but it doesn't feel like something more along the lines of what I've heard with Fates. So, but it's still more fleshed out than something like Fire Emblem 7 on the original Game Boy, or Game Boy Advance, right? Original Game Boy, the Game Boy Advance.
I really wish you weren't showing all of this, because I've got a Nintendo voucher burning a hole. And I love these kind of games, so
yeah, it's so good. So yeah, at this point, it just feels so stinking complete, and just there's so much to consider, and I love that about it. So at this point, I feel like Nintendo should just reduce the amount of Fire Emblems coming out a year. Granted, there hasn't been a lot, but keep it like once a generation, because like at this point, I cannot figure out like what else could you guys do with this besides creating dope levels and great stories. Take the time to do that, and yeah, I'll play a new Fire Emblem that's huge every generation. You know, maybe 2 at most. Right now, we only got 3 houses in Engage. So on the Switch, feels about right to me. Just leave it there. Engage is great. Just don't even go any further. I know they're trying to, they've tried to go the Pokemon route with Fire Emblem at times, but with Birthright and I forget what the company Conquest. Thank you. All right. I bought Conquest. I think that was I forgot I did that. I didn't finish that one, but I did play some of it. That one was pretty good.
They also did the Warriors series.
Yeah, that's a spinoff though,
which they have the 2 of.
Yeah, one's on the Wii U originally, I think, and then the other one was on the Switch.
Yeah,
so
both of them were actually available on the Switch, I believe, though. Now.
Yeah,
Yeah, 3 Hopes and the original Warriors. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm talking about just mainline Fire Emblem games.
Yeah.
1 to 2 at this point. Yeah, just spread them out, because what they have here, I really like it. Now, of course, whatever the next Fire Emblem they would make probably wouldn't include this ring concept. So they would replace it with something. But in terms of everything else surrounding that mechanic, feels very complete. I'm like, stick with that. There's so much to consider. Maybe new enemy types. I don't know. But I think the best way to describe it everything feels subtle.
Hmm.
So I guess, yeah, it goes back to what I was saying. You can play it as Fire Emblem regular, whatever generation you've been playing, or you can really engage in all the systems. I will say, specifically speaking about the emblems, they feel super powered, but not overpowered. So there are limitations to them. Again, you can only keep it going for 3 turns. And if you see in the upper right corner, there's these little glowing circles, or upper left corner, excuse me, little circles where if you put a character who has a ring in that circle, it'll recharge your ring. But clearly, they put it in places where it's not necessarily good opportunity for you. Like you'll have to take a few more turns, maybe, possibly, to utilize them and get them, which could put you out of position, which could mean you miss out on something. Because I'm pretty sure there are levels in this game where if you complete it fast enough, you unlock certain things, whether that's an extra level or whatever the case may be. So they do a lot of risk reward stuff. Even, I mean, in every single way. It's not just, you get to get powered up with this thing and just dominate everybody. And it's like, yeah, you kind of can for 3 turns, but once it's done, like, where are you at? Are you in a good position? Are you out of position? Like you really gotta think about when you activate these things. It's not just given to you. And I'm playing on classic, so I am very much trying to keep all my units alive. I am playing on normal mode just because it's been a while from me playing Fire Emblem, but yeah, I can imagine if you play on harder or anything else, you're probably gonna have to use all the systems, which is fine. It's because again, it's not overwhelming. You just got to remember it's all there. So that's just the tricky part. I remember Noah bringing up the hero originally, and I forgot what you thought about it. The main hero. I remember you mentioned something like he was just too godlike and too perfect, I believe. Maybe that was you, maybe that was somebody else.
I don't think that was me. I have slept since then though, so there's a good chance it might have been.
Well, I was gonna say that. So the dumbest thing about this Fire Emblem is the name.
But in terms of Engage,
so yeah, the name
David's
Engage.
Fan of that, yeah. I remember when it got announced.
I'm not a fan of that name.
Yeah, it's not the greatest Fire Emblem name, that's for sure.
And that's more what it is. It's not a good Fire Emblem name.
Yeah.
But I liked the main characters. I like the red and blue color palettes that the game, kind of themed with the main character. But I'm also the anime guy, so I love all of this animation style and character design. So I'm fan.
Same. It was jarring at first to see the characters. Like, whoa, okay, it's bright red and blue.
My man's got the red berry, blueberry, split. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, all right, they went for it on this one, but it's fine.
To be fair though, it kind of goes. I not trying to call anime a shtick or a meme, but like you can always tell who the main character is because they have the most like outlandish hairstyle and hair color.
Absolutely.
So it's like you see him, and you're like main character.
Yep.
It makes it very easy.
You just line them up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Everybody
Who's the
else
main
has
character?
everyone else has
guy.
like a normal range of hair color, and then you have the guy with the half shiny blue and red, and you're like main character.
That's
so
it. So I remember, if I wasn't talking to you, I remember thinking, the character, hearing the character is a little too perfect. He just knows what to do all the time. Things like that. It feels very in line with other Fire Emblem heroes. They generally know what they want to do. They generally make good decisions. I'm not sure why they don't get into more heroes. who don't necessarily have an anti-hero feel to them, but heroes that have more noticeable weaknesses other than I lack confidence, which is what this character has. They don't have confidence for some reason. They are considered the divine dragon, and everybody worships the divine dragon. And they're just so shocked that, oh my god, I get to meet the divine dragon. Oh my gosh, I get to fight with the divine
Did
dragon.
you guys see that? It's the divine dragon. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the mage's lines is something along the lines of, "Oh my gosh, the divine dragon chose me." It's just like, yeah, man, like we got to win this fight, so, and I need you to move to this position so you can throw a fireball at that guy. Appreciate it, bro. So the lack of confidence just seems like a weak way to show humanity of this really powerful character that everybody is like, I guess, learning that he's human, but still making really good decisions after being asleep for 1,000 years and doesn't really know what's going on. It doesn't have the story about his mother and this war that he fought, that she fought in a long time ago. Like, he's missing a whole bunch of information, but man, he sure does know how to command an army. So, it's just like, and has confidence issues. So you don't really get a sense of like, why is he this way? Like, he's been asleep for 1,000 years, but why is he waking up and is just like, oh, I can't believe that you guys would follow me. It's like, it's freaking divine dragon. Like, you call yourself, I'm the divine dragon. That's my name. So that's weird. But other than that, the character's fine. I always harken back to Lynn in Fire Emblem 7, which was the first Fire Emblem for the Game Boy Advance. And, she was a character who was coming from just a town of nothing. And she was like, I'm going to be the person to do the thing. I know how to wield a sword, and I'm going to save people because this land needs it. And she just could recruit everybody and knew what to do and made all the right decisions and and it was fine. The stories of betrayal, the stories of sadness and all that was surrounded with the other characters, which seems to be the way this Fire Emblem is going to go in. That's the direction. I don't remember the story of Awakening as much. I didn't play enough of Birthright to remember those hero stories, but I am waiting for a story where the hero makes the people, or I guess makes the people who are following him or her question them. You know what I'm saying? Like, or like you make a decision and, one of the units that's been with you decides to leave because of that decision, like stuff like that. Like, I am curious to see when they'll go in that kind of direction where the hero isn't always so perfect, and either based on your decisions or the way it's written in the storyline. Maybe a story of a hero who's like, who has their own redemption arc where it's like, yeah, what their reasoning for fighting everybody is not a good reason, but then it like becomes a good reason, something like that. I don't know. They need more of that where the hero is kind of like, I don't know about this guy. I don't know if I like this character, type of thing. So that would be interesting. But so far, I'm liking what I'm seeing. I'm enjoying it. I'm going to keep playing it. So that's Fire Emblem Engage. I got something quick about Destiny 2. I stopped playing Destiny 2 so I could play Fire Emblem Engage because I just can't take Lightfall anymore. I can't do it.
That's fair.
Cannot, under no circumstance, take Lightfall anymore. I didn't finish it, so I admit I wonder, at the very least, if I am somewhat influenced by all the negativity that I've heard about the campaign in particular, because the whole what is the veil thing really does bother me. I am going through this campaign. I'm shooting stuff. It feels like Destiny. It doesn't feel fresh. It doesn't feel really brand new. Strand is cool. I like the Strand. That's fun. There's some interesting gameplay scenarios in the campaign that makes use of Strand that is interesting that you haven't been able to do traditionally in Destiny. But it still feels very Destiny, if you know what I'm saying. Does that make sense? No, like, like it doesn't go so far out that it doesn't feel wildly different. Like, even with the grappling, it doesn't feel wildly different.
The grappling, I think, is one of the best parts of the Strand kit. But yeah, like, aside from the suspension and stuff, the kits themselves, just from a tech, standpoint, they can only go. I'm assuming that they can only go so far, in differing from the way the other supers feel.
Sure.
But yeah, the gameplay still just feels like Destiny, though. That's not going to change. It's such a
No. Yeah.
good feeling game to play.
So there's that. So there's a familiarity of that. And I've realized at this point, for me, I do like Destiny's gameplay. But what got me through the Witch Queen was the story. Lightfalls fails so bad on story that the gameplay is not keeping me. Yep. That's where I'm at with Destiny. Again, it's not bad. I just don't feel like I'm in a position where I want to spend my time playing the same type of gameplay that I've been playing for a story that's not going to have a payoff. And it certainly doesn't feel like it's going to have a payoff at this point. Like the Witch Queen, I was in from till the end. I was like, this is not only is the gameplay great as it's always been, but man, the story keeps me coming back. I'm like, okay, I want to take down the Witch Queen. I want to see how this ends. With the Lightfall, I'm seeing Osiris lose his mind all the time, impatient, talking crazy to these people he doesn't even know over the veil. I'm like, I still don't know what this thing is. Like, Osiris, why are you losing your mind? Like, nobody else is tripping, but you seem to know something none of us do. Literally, none of us do. So continually seeing that, and then part of the structure of Lightfall's campaign feels very reminiscent of old Destiny, which is not good. There are already several sequences that feel unique because of Strand, but there are also several sequences that I'm like, oh my God, this is like, I'm in original Destiny. Oh, this is PTSD. Like, why did you guys go back to this kind of setup? So that sort of stuff is just like, this ain't it. I'm just going to set Lightfall down. I'm going to look forward to the final shape. I have confidence Bungie can get it right for the final shape. And the only reason why I have confidence they can do that is because of the Taken King, Forsaken, the Witch Queen, and in my opinion, Beyond Light wasn't terrible. So those dictate to me, yes, they can get it right. I just have to hope that they get it right. That's my only thing. I just have to hope, because they seem to get one right and then they can't get the next one right. I would say from Beyond Light to the Witch Queen, that's been the most consistent they've been. After that,
yeah, I would actually argue and say that the Witch Queen up until Lightfall was the most consistent that the writing and the storytelling has ever been with the seasonal narrative, including in that conversation. It really is just sad that heartbreaking, I should say, is a better word, that like Bungie has to fail so miserably that they have to get their back put into a corner in order to produce their best content.
But here's the thing. This has been the best expansion sales-wise for Bungie. So did they really get the message? I don't know. Like, there's enough I will give this credit to Bungie. Like they do have their ear to the ground with the community. They listen. They absolutely do.
Yeah,
Are they
and
getting mixed messages though with what the community's saying versus what the numbers are saying? Right?
yeah,
I don't know.
I don't think so. Because it like narratively aside, and when I was talking like fail to get their back to produce, I was meaning from a narrative standpoint, gameplay standpoint. The game still is fantastic. Like all of the seasonal content, everything's really fun to play still. It's still a really good feeling game, and there's lots of stuff to do. There's lots of loot to chase. Um, Bungie themselves, Joe has actually he's acknowledged, and I think I've talked about it before on the pod, but he has acknowledged that Lightfall didn't land. Bungie knows they've seen it.
I did see
Um,
that. Yeah.
yeah, they've acknowledged it. They know that they missed the mark, and we all know they just obviously can't say it. But this was a filler. This was not the final shape was supposed to be Lightfall, but they had to you know set it back, and we got Lightfall, which was the filler, and it's very obvious to tell. Um, but the gameplay of it still is really good, and yes, they are going to tell us more about the veil and slowly piece together things over this next year. It still doesn't I guess excuse the fact that they didn't put it into Lightfall itself. You don't get a pass just because you're like, hey, we're going to tell you later. You should have put it in Lightfall. Um,
Yeah.
but the people are I mean, I'm still enjoying Destiny. I think at this point, those of us who are hardcore dedicated players, we have acknowledged that the campaign fell short, and it's not that we've moved on, it's just that we're trying to focus on the
Well, you
seasonal
guys
stuff, what's
at this
next.
point, you played Destiny for a different reason than somebody like myself.
Oh yeah.
Like after Beyond Light, I really got into the lore and I started, watching all the Bife videos and
Yeah,
things
the
like that. And
Vice.
yeah. So with the Witch Queen, I was definitely into it. Um, but for me, like the story is the what draws me at
You
this
need it
point.
front and center. You don't need to go
Yes.
read lore tabs and watch Bife videos. You need it in the campaign, yeah.
Yeah. Which the Witch Queen did a much better job of doing that
Mhm.
stuff, which was why it was so fantastic to me. And really, I think that's why it was fantastic for a lot of people because that was a really strong campaign. And then you had everything else that Destiny does well, done well, So,
Mhm.
um, but with knowing that now after playing Lightfall, I'm like, okay, I know why I play now. And so I can comfortably just wait until the final shape. Yes, I paid for season one and all that because I bought Lightfall and they automatically bundled it in. But it's just one of those things. I'm like, I have so many other things to play. That's part of it
Yep.
too. I have so
Yeah.
many other things to play. I remember grinding out Beyond Light because I had never really like engaged in the Destiny seasons and everything else that it had to offer at a hardcore pace, and that was literally draining. It was
Yeah.
so
Oh, it is.
draining trying to keep up with all of it.
Uh,
And I was like, I know I won't be able to. Like even just on a regular level, like even if I put as much time into Destiny 2 as I do Overwatch, I'm gonna miss out on stuff, and I don't really want to mess with that. So I know what I am now as a Destiny player, and I'm okay with that. And
and Bungie's okay with that. Like they know that, you
well,
know,
yeah, as long as I keep paying them, yeah, absolutely.
as long as you come back for the final shape, that's all that but yeah, they want you to um they know that there are players who hop in for the major expansions and then they go play other stuff. And they said, like, we
Yeah,
want you to play other stuff. Like, that's healthy. They're like, don't be like the loot gremlins like Noah who, grind the game consistently. Um, yeah, I think you will. I'm hopeful, and I've a lot of confidence that Bungie will nail the final shape. So
I think they
don't let me
can.
down. That's all I'm asking. Don't let.
I'm not confident, but
I
I think they
I
can. I'm confident that they can.
I believe in him. I
I do too. I just there's
love
there's
those two
enough evidence to suggest it might not land as well as we hope.
as we hope, yeah, because they got, like we talked about, they have 8 missions to wrap up this light and dark saga of Destiny 2. So that is a tall task ahead of them.
Yeah. All right, so that's my feelings on Destiny 2 at this point.
Yeah,
I'm done.
we'll see you in Lightfall or Final Shape, I should say.
Yeah,
I'll be
speaking
waiting.
in Final Shape.
I'll hold a parking spot for you. You know.
Yeah, appreciate it. That's the other thing too. I cannot seem to get on when everybody else is playing. I'm like, hey guys, you wanna, no, okay, all right, you're busy. Oh yeah, it's not just you. Like literally every person I know who plays Destiny, I'm like, okay, somehow I just miss everybody's caboose. Like I just cannot. The train
It's the
has
time
left.
zones. The time
Yeah,
zones.
it's just
Pesky
like,
time zones. You know.
goodness gracious. So that kind of sucks. Oh yes, Overwatch 2 real quick. This one will be fast. I wanted to bring this up because they had 2 events, the Ketchamari and April Fools. Now, Noah, we disagreed on Ketchamari, but I don't know if you played the April Fools event. I thought that was so good. It was so good, and it only was like 3 days.
If
So
I didn't play it, but didn't they just like change up the voice lines?
no,
No.
they literally for the arcade, they changed abilities and what they do. So they had Reinhardt out here. When you do charge, he can fly. You should guide him up and down to fly. Orissa's little helicopter spin, not only did it go faster, but kind of similar thing. Like you could guide her around and just like fly up in the air a little bit. Anna could land headshots, like scoped or unscoped.
Jeez.
Kiriko could teleport 350 meters to a target instead. And the cooldown was based
that's
on
going
how
crazy.
far. Huh?
That's
crazy.
so much fun. Yeah, that sounds really fun.
So the cooldown was based on how far you teleported away. So the closer, the shorter the cooldown was. Roadhog's hook shot was super long. But what really made it funny was if you read the patch notes, like it played into all the wild and weird things that they were doing. And the patch notes were actually written pretty funny. Like they actually did a good job of writing the patch notes and making it goofy. It was fun. And what was really weird was it didn't feel unbalanced. It strangely worked. Like Winston Shield, he put it down and it would follow with him. Right. So like he just be going around with his shield instead of just laying it down and just stay there. And you look at that and go, wait, why isn't that actually how his shield works?
Yeah, it makes sense. It sounds like organized chaos.
It did. It was absolutely organized chaos. And there were a lot of people who were like, no, some of these things should actually stay because it didn't feel like it was unbeatable. Even with Ana, I didn't feel pressured all the time. Like I didn't feel like I was just out of my zone because all I get is headshots, right? So literally, if I'm not hitting headshots, I'm just playing Ana. But even with like Roadhog, well, yeah, you still don't need to be in front of them. Like, like essentially, it's the same thing. You just have to be really far away, right? So like Winston with his shield following him, yeah, he's a little harder to deal with, but he's still Winston, right? So like, that stuff all felt right. And it was just weird how they go this absurd thing. It all feels good. And I feel like Bungie, Blizzard needs to just lean into these kind of events more. Like Ketchamari, like it's a weird game. It's essentially kill confirmed, as we know, but it works. Like it takes the fundamentals of Overwatch and applies it in a way that requires all those fundamentals. Comp switching, compositions switching, all that stuff. And it's kind of competitive. That's Overwatch. And then you got something that's absolutely absurd with this April Fool's event. And it's like, it works. Like this.
Yeah.
This is the identity of Overwatch. Have the competitive stuff that's like legit competitive that fits with Overwatch. And then just have absurd stuff on the other side for other people.
Make
I'm
it
like,
a perma mode.
not even that. Like, it would have been great if they would have held it on at least a little longer instead of 3 or 4 days, whatever it was. But yeah, I don't think it needs to be a perma mode. But lean more into that with these different events. Like, get absolutely stupid with it. Like, because that's
Get
what it was. It was
crazy.
absolutely stupid. And it worked. And I feel like that's where Blizzard needs to go with Overwatch. It either has to be competitive, like the game is, that, you know, and they don't lean into that because they're afraid to, or just absolutely absurd, like they were with the April Fool's event, and it worked, even though they might have been a little concerned about how it was received. But it was received really well because it was just that extreme, which great. So I don't know. I thought that was great, and I like Ketchamari. I like the April Fool's event. I want them to do more stuff like that.
Add more fun into the game.
Yeah.
The craziness.
But that's the thing. Lean into either one. Like, it's a competitive game, so create stuff that leans into that, and create patches and all that lean into that. And then for those who don't care about that, you can have your vanilla, quick play Overwatch. That's fine. But then arcade, just absurd, just absolutely bonkers stuff that just doesn't make sense, but it works because it's just so absurd.
He wants you to skip 1 through 9 and go straight to 10. That's what he wants.
Absolutely. All right, David,
Wake up.
you got some news for
Wake
us?
Yeah, a fun little one. There's apparently a new Sony patent that shows a controller that can change temperature. That was interesting.
Forgot about that.
Yeah, apparently it would be just, I guess, part of the whole DualSense idea of it would like get hotter, colder, or whatnot. Like if you enter a volcano, you could feel it. If you walk through the snow, you could feel it or whatnot. I will settle for better battery life. That is what I will settle for. Before you make those, we need to invest in a much better battery. I don't need to feel the heat of the fire of the Molotov cocktail. I just need for my controller to last. And that will most assuredly kill the battery in my controller. On to the real news. We didn't get to talk about a couple of things last week that were big things, and especially considering this is actually still going on right now, and I knew that Anthony would have a lot to say on it. Multiverses. It was announced last week that the game was going to be going offline, and now it has been pulled completely from digital storefronts. I believe that you can play it until, if I'm not mistaken, June, sometime in June for now. But as soon as June rolls around, it's going completely offline for at least 6 months, possibly longer.
Yeah. You got a question for me? What are my thoughts?
What are your thoughts on this? Because I mean, I've got a couple, and we probably match up a bit on some of this.
Well, let me hear yours first.
Well, I mean, number one, this game is dead. Like you're literally killing your game doing this. People aren't just gonna sit back and be like, okay, cool, I'll see you in 8 months. That's not how gaming works. The next big thing comes out, steals all your thunder, and unless you just launch this magically different game, which I highly doubt, that's it. Like you've lost your momentum. Secondly, people paid money for this.
Okay, well, on that first thought though, what momentum do you have when you've lost 99% of your player base?
Yeah.
right? So if it is, I guess, an anomaly for a game that is pretty much out. Most people forgot it was even in open beta. I forgot. and I played
Oh,
lots of
everybody
it.
did.
And they're like, okay, thanks. We're gonna shut it down and come back with even better, which fine. They can do that because they already lost 99% of their player base. Imagine if Overwatch did that. Then the game would die.
Yeah.
But Multiverses was already dead. So I feel like this was a smart decision for them. Just shut it down. The 1% that are playing, thank you, appreciate it. You're going to come back more than likely when we have even better stuff. And so I think what they'll do is and we'll see how this works. I think that's the risk. We'll see how this works, but they're going to come back and have a plan to make it a fanfare event so that it feels brand new. So it feels like a new Destiny 2 expansion. It feels like a new Call of Duty season. It feels like, something fresh, brand new. Again, y'all got to come check this out. Look at the stuff that we did. I think there is a element to that it could work if they do that.
Well, I
You
guess
don't agree?
it's one of those things. If I understand they've lost a lot of people and stuff, but you're just like out of sight, out of mind.
Well, yeah, when you're out of sight, out of mind,
you're gonna kill it.
They know nobody's looking at it, but if they come back with a big enough blast, a marketing blast, then they're in mind again, right? Like, I mean, that's how marketing works.
But the other issue is people spent a good amount of money on this game, and nobody was thinking, we could go 8 months to a year without being able to play the thing we paid money for. Like
so it's not true that
that's
you
the
can't
other
play
issue.
It. It's not true that you can't play it. You can't play it online. So you don't lose anything. You lose absolutely nothing. So you can't play it online, but you can still access certain modes, the lab. You could still play against computers if you want to. So the main crux of it, yes, the online stuff, that won't be there because it's obviously offline. But you don't lose anything that you paid for. Everything will still be there when you return. So you're not losing anything. Thankfully, that's the case. So when all the Gleamium that people paid for that is unspent, they said it will be back when the game comes back. So you're not losing anything on that front either. So at first I was thinking the same thing, but knowing that, I'm like, oh, okay. So I mean, you essentially keep everything that you bought should you still be interested in the game, which that's how all live service games work. So that's fine. I think that's fine.
Well, it's still the whole vaulted almost idea.
No, it's not vaulted. You have it.
It is. I don't have it for 8 months. There's entire sections of the game that are completely unusable for 8 months.
Yeah,
if the game ever comes, if they don't just decide to sunset this entire game at the end of it.
I mean,
there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee this thing comes back. We know what live service is.
You're right. Yes, but it's not vaulted in the same way you are referencing Destiny 2. Like,
it's vaulted. There's an entire gameplay that I can't do. I can't spend any of the credits that I have purchased. Okay. And there's a chance that I may never get to spend those credits.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, once again, it's the consumer's money. Like, you vaulted the opportunities for me to be able to use it.
That is assuming with the idea that Warner Brothers is going to say, no, kill it. I don't think that's the case. They're saying January.
There's still a chance.
Based on what we've seen, yes, there's a chance. What do you think the percentage is?
I think it's 50-50, to be honest with you.
50-50? You think it's 50-50?
This man says
Warner Brothers killed a Batgirl movie that they'd already sunk almost $100,000 into. They're not looking to spend more money on things right now. They're not looking to spend more money on something that lost 99% of its player base.
But if you can have the pitch to Warner Brothers that we had a great start, we know people will pay into the things that we have. All we need is content. Give us some time to build some content. Give us a little time to build a pipeline. If I'm Warner Brothers and I saw all that money that came in, yeah, I'm fine. Sure, yes, you go ahead. This is your last chance. But here, I don't
think Warner has the money for second chances.
What do you mean they don't have the money? They already made a whole bunch of money off of multiverses.
Oh, that they probably already spent.
Maybe not. We don't know that. I would say it's a 20% chance this game does not come back, but I feel like it could be even lower than that. I just don't think it's vaulted in the same way.
I mean, I can't access at least half of the game, if not more, for 6 months.
Yes, correct.
I would not be happy as someone who paid money to suddenly not be able to use it.
But that's all live service games. Like this one is
what live service game have we had that just shut itself off completely for 6 months?
Again, this is unprecedented. We have not had this before.
Okay.
But if any live service shuts down, you lose everything. That's how they all. That's the point I'm saying. That's how they all work. So you always run the risk of any of your money being spent. That's how this goes. If you don't go into a live service understanding that that's a you problem, that's not a them problem. So in this case, they're saying, we're coming back. Everything that you've bought, it's going to be there. All the Gleamium that you've bought, it will be there. We're coming back. Did Knockout City say we're coming back? Nope. Rumbleverse tried to imply they're coming back. They're not. And even if they do, it's going to be a completely different game, right? These other live service games that have shut down, they're like, no, we're done. Multiverses is saying, no, we're coming back. This is what we're doing. And it was technically an open beta, so they kind of did have an out with that. So that's fine on them. I don't see a reason why it doesn't come back. It was successful. Yep. The reason why they lost 99% of the player base, which I think is weird because the player, but this is how live services are. It's because of content and lack of other modes and things like that. So if that's the feedback that they got, all right, we're going to shut down. We already lost 99% of y'all. We put this stuff back in. We give you guys what you want. More stuff, more whatever and whatnot. All right. Then you come back. How do you not come back if that's what the people want? Okay, shut it down. Vaulted.
It's vaulted, man. It's vaulted.
Destiny I come 2. Back and my man's dropping vaulted references, and I was like, I should have got popcorn on my track. Like,
everybody keeps trying to follow this Fortnite model of being completely in beta for forever, and then selling people stuff in beta, so that you got the out. It's like the trainee badge. That you definitely not a trainee anymore, but you're like, but I'm a trainee.
Didn't Steam start all that first with some of the early access stuff or whatever they called it before? It was
early access and beta are two completely different things, though.
To who?
Noah?
Yeah. We understand that. We understand that.
Well, I mean, I just answer the question.
I know. But I'm saying to who? You got these regular people out here. They get a chance at Diablo 4 open beta. That's early access to them. There really is no difference.
Cool.
It's just where it's at in development,
and what kind of money you can put into it.
Yeah,
that's why early access tag would have made sense, but they got the beta tag in there, so they can shut it. They can vault it for 6 months.
Move on.
Okay.
Wordplay. Vaulted.
The other big news that we had out of last
implies
week.
it's not coming back. That's the problem I have with it. That's the problem I have with Vaulted.
The other news
I was
we
trying to
had.
figure out what it bothered me is because it
Last
implies
week.
it's not coming back. We know Bungie ain't bringing
might
back
not.
the Vaulted stuff.
It might not.
No,
It's just
no.
re-
We
The
know.
other
It looks
the other
different.
news, the big news we had last week is that E3 is vaulted. Because God knows that thing ain't coming back.
Yeah,
I don't care how many times they say we're trying to figure it out. We're trying to do all this. We're trying to do all that. We're gonna come back stronger. No, you're not. This was your comeback stronger. This was the opportunity. It's not that the industry. It's not that consumers don't want E3 in the sense of the idea of it. It's that they don't want the version of it that's being presented. So somebody's going to
Is
have
it
to
the
figure out what the
consumers or
vision
is it
is.
the developers and
When
publishers?
I'm saying on both sides of it.
'Cause I feel like
I
it's more
feel like-
developers and publishers who don't
Yeah,
want
which
it the way it is.
I was at 2017 and I knew that the industry people were not thrilled already with how things were starting to go, like where they had started selling tickets to the expo and such, because suddenly the industry was having to figure out how to incorporate 10,000 fans into their presentations and stuff. And, you know, when you're used to pitching to industry, press, all that kind of stuff, you don't want to have to, at least to me, I guess you could kind of use the term babysit. You're not looking to babysit in those moments, and that was what was happening. You're not wanting to give away your cool, your freebies to people who may or may not even touch your game. You know, at least with press, you have a chance of getting something out of them, but you ain't getting much out of a fan who just wanders up to your booth. But yeah, E3 is, it doesn't matter who says that they're trying to come back. Like, it's done. And it's sad to see things kind of continue to end up this way, but like this has to be the nail in the coffin for it. Like it definitely makes me trust them less from this. Like, I already did not have a very high level of trust in them. And I know we as Gaming Trend put a lot of eggs in that basket, and you know what, it didn't work.
Who is them though for you? Is it the ESA or
It's
Repop or
well,
both?
it's ESA for sure. It's ESA completely on this. I think ReedPop tried. I think that ESA just said, "Hey, do something for us," and ReedPop wasn't sure exactly what that was. I think there was as per usual, ESA didn't communicate, so ReedPop was sitting there trying to figure out what E3 was supposed to be, and they didn't have a lot of time to do it. So ReedPop was stuck trying to be like, well, I don't think they want it to be PAX. And they're like, and we got to figure out how to make it E3. And then ESA was like, okay, we just want E3 and we want you to get this much money out of people for it. And as soon as people started seeing the zeros, it was like, well, we ain't going to be at E3.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that Keeley's Summer Games Fest, it is expensive. It's not cheap. Like he's not just going to people and asking for goodwill and he'll throw a trailer up. No, he's charging pretty good amount of money, but he can when he has that many eyes on his showcases, because the Game Awards and Opening Night Live and his Summer Games Fest things have proven to be popular, and he gets an audience. ESA's just lost that audience, so they would rather put money. We had a very interesting discussion about if you can spend a little bit less and go somewhere else, you're going to do that if you're getting the audience that you want. The problem is for what money the ESA was probably asking, nobody was getting the audience they were wanting. It was not worth the amount of money, even if all the big players were gone, that's pretty sad. Like, you weren't competing with Nintendo or Xbox or Sony at these things, and it still wasn't worth the cost. I mean, that kind of tells you how badly this thing is being run, or at least how badly this thing is being overseen by the ESA, because I'm not going to blame all of Reed Pop on it. They were just given a tough assignment, and that it was going to be hard. They pretty much showed up to class and had a pop quiz. So I have a hard time blaming them for it.
I don't know if I agree with the it's a problem of audience, because I think, as we have seen, there is a hunger for E3. It's there. The problem is how do you convince the developers and publishers that it's worth it? That, I think, is where the ESA can't figure it out. So they gave Reed Pop the keys to the car, and we're also being the backseat driver, is what it feels like. So they gave Reed Pop the keys to the car. They're backseat driving. And we saw that in a quote from Reed Pop saying that they wanted to, they were working with the investors and the ESA and other partners and things like that to try to make E3 work. And I knew at that point, this was, what is this? This is April now. So that was sometime last year. I was like, oh yeah, this, if the ESA has any say in this is not going to go well. So I'm looking at this. I'm like, all right. There was a article on gamesindustry.biz. I think it was by Christopher Dring.
Yeah, he's
In
done
an
a lot of
interview.
their write-ups. He was actually a part of the committee who was trying to help put it on.
Yeah. He said a lot of the people who were listening to the pitch from Reed Pop liked it. And so they were on board. But it became inflation. It became, what was the other thing? It was the look of having an extravagant event during these times. It was, we don't have stuff ready. So he's seeing, it's like, all right, this is the hand the ESA was dealt in terms of the timing was just bad. My thing is, though, we're dealing with Reed Pop. Reed Pop puts on New York Comic Con, and they put on PAX, which is a nationwide event. Happens
Very
in 3 or 4.
successful too.
Yeah. Reed Pop brought PAX back while COVID was coming down. You know how hard that is to convince people to come, to convince vendors to be there, and to convince them all that it will be safe enough for you to be there and we can have this thing. That's difficult. Somehow, Reed Pop figured it out. But you're telling me Reed Pop couldn't figure out how to put on E3 without the same issues of COVID and other problems? Because don't forget, all the COVID stuff did create a bad economy. And yet, they still got people there. People were spending money. People were flying out there, booking hotels. And so you're telling me, now granted, yes, in different parts of the states, LA is expensive. I get that. But still, people would have paid. Okay. They want to be at E3. Point being, they figured that out. You're telling me Reed Pop couldn't figure this out. I'm not going to say it wasn't difficult, but I'm also going to say I don't think it was as difficult as trying to come back from COVID. Right? So the hardest part is figuring out what E3 is. It sounded like they had an idea that people were on board with. Somehow, I feel like the ESA and their bad business, because they're bad business people, probably were strangling Reed Pop in terms of what they wanted, whereas Reed Pop probably would have made some compromises in order to make the event happen and satisfy the people who need to be there for the event to happen in the first place. I just think I can't see it any other way. Like Reed Pop, people say Reed Pop's communication with the publisher developers wasn't great. Okay, that's fine. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe that's how they operate. And somehow they still seem to have success with PAX and New York Comic Con, which, by the way, New York Comic Con, enormous. Like, you just don't put on New York Comic Con. That's a lot of, that's all. We're talking about multi-billion-dollar film industries, like, it's not like they don't know how to work with these huge corporations and artistic companies, so it's like they know what they're doing. So them not figuring this out, yeah, definitely not their fault. It's the ESA.
When it doesn't help them that the game industry, we talked about it the other day, like it's so much more secretive compared to the film industry. That doesn't help you either when you're trying to coordinate reveals and stuff, and people, well, we don't know if we have this, we don't know if we have that. I mean, and like we were talking about, the ESA is just stupid. So in the end, it just didn't work out, unfortunately. And ReedPop got caught in the middle is really what it kind of boils down to. I mean, it says a lot when you have on a I think it was an earnings call where Ubisoft literally says we will be at whatever E3 is. They're announced as being at E3, and they're the only people who are announced as being a part of E3. And then suddenly they're not a part of E3. And not only that, the day after that is said, they announced their show, which is a part of Summer Games Fest.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't make that garbage up.
No,
like, ESA really fumbled the bag. Well, they've been fumbling the bag.
I mean, the president was like, yeah. What did he say about E3? Like, if it happens, like, it's like, wait a minute, if it happens. So clearly there was some rumblings in the background already.
Yep. Well, Schreier said at GDC it was always a constant thing of we don't know.
I saw that. Yeah. Is it happening? Sure, maybe. I still think E3 can happen, but I don't think E3 can happen the way everybody glamorizes it.
Yeah.
I do think E3 needs to stick with industry and press as it used to be, because that's what it originally was. And eventually we got that bombast because publishers and developers were trying to fight for our eyeballs, press, media. They were fighting for eyeballs. So that was part of the reason why it was so bombastic. The show floor was so crazy and wild. And, you got your GameSpots and IGNs, on the floor, walking past these booths, and it's just stuff, right? I think it just needs to go back media only, industry only. But you do it in such a way where instead of having to fight for eyeballs and press writing about you and all that, it's guaranteed. Like, you're paying for the I won't say the access, but the guaranteed marketing. Like, E3 is
the right eyeballs,
right? Yes. So yes, you got your GameSpots there, you got your IGNs there, you got all the
gaming
outlets,
trends.
Your gaming trends, like the outlets that will absolutely cover stuff. You will be guaranteed coverage. You don't have to fight for it. You don't have to work for it. You're on the show floor. You're having interviews with GameSpot, with IGN, with Gaming Trend, with whoever. Like, whoever's there, you're guaranteed access. Now, yes, that means that's work for you, but free exposure. Free in the sense of you're paying for it, but it's the biggest event of the year. Yes, you could put on your own live stream thing, but there's still something nice about this one segment, week, 3 days, whatever it is. That's the point. It's this one segment of time where it's just wall-to-wall video games, and everybody's got their eyeballs to the screen waiting to see what kind of stuff is going to come out. Like, that is the appeal. It's like a few days before the Super Bowl, it's just wall-to-wall coverage of the Super Bowl before it happens, and then you have the actual event, right? So similar to that fashion, mimic that in that sense, And instead of fighting for coverage, no, you get your coverage. You absolutely get it. So you got your time slots, you got all that stuff, whatever the case may be. And you still have that festival feel for everybody else. So the publishers and developers get what they want, press gets the access that they need, and the consumers, the people who just are watching, they get what they want. Wall-to-wall coverage, 3 days to a week. I'd probably limit it to 3 days, honestly. Keep the expense down for them.
Yep, that's generally about 3 to 4 is probably max.
Yeah. But I would also say you do get rid of the press conferences. That's the one thing you do get rid of because they can put their stuff on the internet, right? So go ahead, have your little Nintendo Direct, your state of play, your Microsoft presentation, whatever that thing is called, I forget. Then you have the show floor stuff. So you don't have to spend a bunch of money to have this press conference where you have to feel like you have to be bombastic and put on a show and all that, which a bunch of business people try to put on a show is ridiculous anyway.
Oh, we've seen Peggle too.
Oh, yeah.
One of the
So
best moments in video games.
So miss me on all that press conference stuff. And then show floor day, you get to go into more detail about everything that you showed on your little Nintendo Directs and all that state of play stuff. So, yeah. That's how I feel E3 could live on. Smaller scale, not as expensive.
I agree.
The biggest question is going to be the people who are wanting to make the money off the con side, but I'm hoping with what I like I said, agree with what you're talking about. I'm hoping that is essentially what Jeff Keighley is seeing with his Summer Games Fest live stuff, because that's what he did last year. He had the show and then he had the media event on the 2 days where people just walked in and talked with devs and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully that can be what's captured. And if Keighley can keep working towards that, keep growing it the way he is, finding these ways to improve it and get more people as a part of the staff to work towards these goals, it'll replace E3, which I think he has enough spite in him to make sure that it does. Because my word, I'll be honest, like there was a couple times I was doing I wanted to do the whole Simpsons meme of just stop, he's already dead. Because I mean, my word, he's ruthless. I mean, 5 minutes bro, you're at the BAFTAs and you're busy tweeting about E3 being dead. I got an email the very next day from Summer Games Fest newsletter that said, summer video games are not canceled. They're not dead or something. I'm like, bro, let the body get cold.
Seriously.
Jeez.
Yeah, I am all for Jeff Keighley's pettiness towards E3.
It's hilarious, but geez.
I will say, I would want the media stages back. Like, that was me growing up watching GameSpot and all of them do their thing, walking the show floor, having the stages, guests come on, they have it. Like, part of that, like, I want somebody's to do that again. Like, that was so much fun, just watching all that stuff happen. That was part of the event and spectacle of it all for me.
But yeah, that's the big stuff.
Noah, you had nothing to say about E3?
Nah, you guys hit the nail pretty much on the head with everything, especially I like your presentation. Then you kind of have like the media only. I think that's the best way to go. So yeah, I don't have anything to add. You guys hit it at the park. That's a baseball reference for those keeping track at home.
Yeah, fans don't need to be there at E3.
No.
Like, if you think about how we got excited about E3 in the first place, I was from watching it on the internet. So
And G4 or Spike TV.
Mhm.
that's what I'm saying, or Spike
Yeah.
TV or IGN or GameSpot or whoever. Like, watching it on the internet, like that's where we got the hype from. So we don't need to be there. Like, yes, would it be fun to be there? Sure, but it's
when
work.
I was third key manager at GameStop, I would take off those days and I
Oh,
would
yeah.
plop myself down in front of our TV. I'd turn on Spike. I'd watch the Microsoft conference.
Oh
I'd
yeah,
watch the EA conference. I'd cook
Mhm.
actually a big pot of just pasta, put some good sauce in there, and I'd just sit back, eat, and watch all day. The only fun thing was once it started doing the different showcases, I used to have to go find Ubisoft and figure out a way to, because that was before it was easy to just throw something to your TV.
yeah.
And yeah, had to figure out how to watch that. And then I think I even remember watching the PlayStation conference through PlayStation Home of all things, because it wasn't streaming directly,
Yeah.
but you could do it through PlayStation Home, because that was before you could get YouTube on your system. So
Yeah, I remember.
crazy stuff, man. Just how far all of this has come. The ease of access.
I know. I remember laying in my bed in high school watching press conferences.
Yeah.
Oh, it was beautiful because it was summer. So I'm like, I'm out of
Yep.
school.
Oh yeah.
I ain't got nothing to do. I'm going to sit here and just soak all of it in. Oh, it's so much fun.
You know, a good way to get the public involved, like to keep the public involved with it. Obviously, you could do certain digital events and stuff like that. I like the idea of like what Keeley did with opening night live, of watch and earn Twitch drops, like figure out stuff like that you can do.
Yeah.
But I
A lot
also
of
like
weird
the
stuff.
idea of doing obviously it's not E3. We keep using that term, but it's that surrounding area. Do special, like limited runs of collectibles and stuff like that you can buy from that week. Like
What do you
a
mean?
way to get you're if you're looking for additional like revenue, but you don't want to throw on a con specifically.
Mm.
Like find a way. That's a good way to revenue, is to you can do shirts, obviously. I would do limited run items, essentially, of this shirt is only available this week. Like this is and not necessarily like the E3 logo or Summer Games Fest, but
Yeah,
like
that'd be
find a
whack.
way, like hire some awesome like indie artist that like takes your showcase specifically and like does a cool mashup of something. Statues, limited edition statues, or collect, like Nintendo. They just sent out, I think, like 100 Mario, or a bunch of Mario coins to people who did like reviews for the Mario movie and stuff. Do something like that. Like these simple ways of, you can have some expensive merch, you can have some cheaper merch, like I said, with t-shirts and stuff, but ways to keep
Hats, water
consumers
bottles,
involved,
yeah.
keep consumers engaged the way you're wanting to do in a convention hall, because that's honestly what ESA is partially wanting, is they're probably wanting to be able to monetize like how conventions do. I mean, when you don't have vendor tables at E3 that often, like there wasn't
Yeah.
a whole lot of just straight up vendor go in and buy it. I think Ubisoft
There was
had a
outside.
booth where you could, but I'm assuming that's part of why ESA wanted to sell tickets in the first place. If you get people in the door, you get them once, then you hit them the second time with merch. And if the ESA couldn't get that, that's probably why their booth prices kept going up.
Well,
So
I like that idea. I mean, it's very reminiscent of the platform, Microsoft, Nintendo, and Sony in terms of how they typically sell their consoles. You know, it's not the consoles that make a profit; it's the accessories.
Yep.
So, I mean, if E3 takes that to heart, ESA takes that to heart, the con itself not going to make money. That's not going to be the profit. The profit is all the accessories you can sell on the outside. That sounds
Yep.
like a logical idea.
At least that's my idea. And the thing is you can work with your vendors at that point. Like if a Ubisoft shows up, hey, custom Assassin's Creed statue that is only ever going to be available that week, and there are 100 of them. You can put a good price on those.
Yeah, absolutely. Buy them. You know, obviously the ESA gets a cut. Ubisoft gets the bigger cut. You know,
Everybody's happy.
Yeah. No, that I like the sound of that. There you go. David again doing his thing.
Call me ESA. Everybody else is in line.
Hey, you know, call me Reed Pop. I got an idea. So yeah, I know how to put all this together. So, all right. I think that's it. Is that it for news?
That is it.
All right. Fantastic. Well, it was good being back. Y'all were not feeling great last week.
Good.
So, I certainly wasn't, but feel good right now. So, trying to figure out, is there anything going on? There's always something going on. Keep your eyes on it.
We'll always find something.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You got the show review coming out.
As of this recording, show and Sherlock Holmes reviews will be up.
Yes.
As of this going live.
Very much so.
The one thing we do know is that Anthony will not be playing Destiny Lightfall.
No, will not.
He has vaulted that.
Yes. Well, no. I mean,
He's close. He'll bring it back out in 6 months, just like Multiverses.
Yeah, right. I think shelved is a better way to say it, because I feel like doesn't vaulting sound permanent? Like if you put something in the vault, you don't plan on taking that thing back out, right? Like, am I wrong in that feeling?
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely doesn't give off the vibe of coming back.
Yeah.
That's why I had a problem with you saying Multiverses was vaulting. It's stuff. I was like, that doesn't sound like they plan on bringing it back. Shelving it, I think if you would have said that, you would have got me. So that's, poor choice of words. All right. That's it for us. We're done.
That's it.
We'll talk to you later. Deuces.
Peace.